I gave my girlfriend 5 COVID shots, accidentally. And this is what happened. Quick background, I'm in my last year of pharmacy school. I'm currently bouncing around doing rotations, which are pre-work at different sites. Hospitals, big pharma companies, retail stores, among many other things. This most recent rotation is in a grocery store pharmacy, where things have gotten pretty hectic with the CDC giving the okay for everyone to get booster shots, which also happened to coincide with flu shot season. I'm pretty much just sticking people with needles all day, every day. So my girlfriend needs her Pfizer booster shot for work, and she wants me to give it to her. Cute, right? I tell her I'd be happy to. On this particular day, for whatever reason, we can't drive to the pharmacy together because our schedules don't line up. I have an obligation in the morning, so I end up at the pharmacy in the early afternoon, and she arrived about 15 minutes after I do. On an average day, I'm usually the vaccine guy, because I'm the guy who says hello at the window, updates your vaccine card, takes your insurance stuff, and makes you wait 45 minutes. I promise I'm moving as fast as I can, and then gives you the shot. So I'm used to handling the whole process, step by step, at my own pace, being as organized as time will allow me to be. I like to set up my stuff in the morning before we open, get all the paperwork in order, and have my ducks in a row before the day even starts. So I walk into the pharmacy in the early afternoon, and it's absolute, unbridled chaos. People waiting for shots, knocking on the windows, some lady poking her head under the plexiglass and asking me about her Venla fax machine, etc. I'm already flustered as heck and off my game because I've had Cheryl waiting, who's getting her second Moderna shot, pneumonia shot, and shingles shot, and also has 3 other medications that need to be filled. And then we have Dave, who bought his 4 kids for flu shots, and also his great aunt who wants all 3 COVID shots at once, and has a bruise on her left arm, so she wants them in her butt. You get the point. The pharmacy is going to hell in a handbasket. 15 minutes later, my girlfriend walks in for her Pfizer booster. I'm very happy to see her, and I tell her that she can do some grocery shopping while she waits for me to get her paperwork together. As I'm rummaging through her paperwork, one of my co-workers opens the fridge, unbeknownst to me, and pulls out an unopened vial of the Pfizer vaccine and pops the cap. For some more background, the Pfizer COVID vaccine comes in multi-dose vials. There's a small amount of liquid in the vial, and you need to dilute it with normal saline before drawing up the vaccine into your syringe. Each vial has enough for 5 doses after dilution. So here's where I went wrong. I turned around to draw up her vaccine into the syringe, and I saw the opened Pfizer vial. My perceptive butt assumes that since the vial is opened with no cap and has a very small amount of liquid in it, it must have been diluted with normal saline, used, and there's only 1 more dose left. Again, with me being extremely insightful, I decided not to double-check or confirm with anyone around me, which would have taken about 1.5 seconds. Of course, in reality, the vial just hadn't been diluted yet, which is why there was so little liquid inside it. Everything else proceeds as usual. I gave my girlfriend the shot, kissed the boo-boo, as I do with everyone for professionalism's sake, and go back into the pharmacy. A few minutes later, my coworker asked me what happened to that new vial she'd just opened, and it begins to dawn on me that I may have just royally crapped the bed. If you do the math with dilution, I'd just given my girlfriend 5 full doses of the COVID vaccine. 5. I'd just injected this poor 105-pound girl with enough vaccine juice to get her through COVID-20. She was still grocery shopping, so I ran over to her, trying to hide the fact that I was crapping myself, and attempted to break the news in a somewhat non-panic-inducing way. Something like, so there was a bit of a dilution error on my part, and you may have just received a bit more than intended. And she honestly took this really well. Just kinda went, okay, what does this mean? And I told her to expect a wee bit of arm soreness and fatigue, and she just strolled away to finish shopping. So meanwhile, I rushed back to the pharmacy and I called Pfizer ASAP. Everything I've read, learned, and Googled has told me that this isn't the hugest deal in the world and it's not life-threatening or anything, but I just wanted to cover my bases, call Pfizer, and see if this had happened before and what the outcome was. After being transferred 9 different times, I got a representative on the line. Apparently, in all the millions of Pfizer vaccines distributed worldwide, me and some dude in New Zealand are the only frickin' idiots stupid enough to pull a stunt like this. According to the rep, severe arm soreness was really the only thing to watch out for. The rest of the day proceeded as usual, save for me being extremely shaken from the whole ordeal. The pharmacist had to fill out and submit an incident report, which ironically I filled out for him since it was so busy. I realized it was probably going to turn out fine, but crap, what if that was a different medication where the concentration really did matter? Literally, people can die from this stuff. Or what if it was some random person instead of my girlfriend and they sued the company into the ground? So my girlfriend, the real victim of this story, got a very sore arm that night. The next day, she felt like a train wreck and spent most of the day in bed. And you bet your butt that I was waiting on her hand and foot. I was popping in the bedroom every 20 minutes to see if she needed anything. And after a few hours of that, she told me to stop bothering her. She took it like a champ though. She was such a good sport about it. We joke that any virus just immediately dies upon entering a 20-foot radius of her. All things considered, the screw-up turned out the best it could. Nobody sued the company, my girlfriend didn't make me sleep on the couch, and I didn't get sent back to 10th grade science class to learn about liquid concentration. The silver lining is that in the future, I'm going to think about the situation every time I'm working around vials, and hopefully never make the same mistake again. In short, didn't double-check that the vaccine vial had been diluted and injected my girlfriend with a super serum. She didn't get any superpowers though. A quick addition for those wondering, my girlfriend hopped out of the bed 36 hours later, in her words, feeling like a million. I appreciate the concern for her, and yes, I'm going to put a ring on that as quickly as possible. Yikes badikes. I don't know that there would be any feeling more awful than, oh crap, I might have just killed my girlfriend. Good on you for running over there immediately and fessing up. A lot of other people might have searched what happens first and then feigned ignorance when they found out it wasn't lethal. In all honesty, my second shot knocked me out for the entirety of the day after I got it too. So it sounds like you might have been able to get away with it if you'd tried to play it off. Also, can we talk about that poor guy in New Zealand who was the first one to accidentally 5-dose someone? Imagine being him and making that call. So I reckon I just killed someone, eh? What do you reckon we should do? Actually, I think you two probably weren't the only ones to do this. You might have just been the only two to report it. There's a difference there. I'm very happy that this learning experience didn't kill anyone. I wonder how many starting pharmaceutical students have done something like this with a much more dangerous substance. I'm not going to be a jerk about it, but I'm definitely going to get antsy if a placement student is doing my injections next time. Today I messed up because I convinced my dad, who's adopted, to let me help him research his family and broke his heart again. My dad is 62 and adopted. He has been watching a lot of long-lost family recently, and I encouraged him quite persistently to start some investigations into his own family. I did most of the research and managed to obtain his adoption paperwork and also found a last known address for his birth mother. So we wrote to the address stating that we were working on a family tree and does this person still live here, and we got a reply that said, "Please do not contact me again. I'm 82 and just want a quiet life. I wish you all the best and yours." Signed from his birth mother. Now he's dealing with the rejection again and is really upset, and I wish that I'd never pushed the issue. He seems so lost and deflated. He almost certainly would not have been able to carry out the research without my help. I'm sorry, Dad. In short, convinced my dad to locate his birth mum, she's not interested, and now he feels miserable. Well, your heart was in the right place. I'm sorry for your dad, but honestly, barring the ability to change this woman's mind, in the long run he might be better off for having answers rather than wondering forever. All you did was help him carry out his request, and I'm sure he doesn't hold that against you. It's a very sad thing, but I also understand this woman not wanting to reopen whatever part of her life it was that led to her giving him up in the first place. There's a lot we can't know or judge here, but we can just hope that everyone can eventually grow and heal from this experience. But you're definitely not the jerk, author. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Local city tries to screw old man before his retirement, so he fills the roads with pig crap. A city near me had a farmer holding out as the city expanded. The city wouldn't let him sell his land at the zoned commercial price since it was a farm, while completely surrounded by commercial development. The city wanted to sell the land zoned for agriculture, basically so they could let some developer bulldoze the fields and flip it for commercial space, easily making 10 times the money that they'd paid for it. Settled into a stalemate. The area became more and more developed. Housing encroached on the back of the property. The farmer was getting old and tired of this crap, not wanting to pass the fight on to his kids. So he came up with a plan. The property had been used for soybean and farming corn to this point. Not really a burden to his neighbors. He applied for and received proper licensing from the state for a hog confinement lot. In case you don't know what that is, that's where they keep tens of thousands of hogs before they're brought to market, normally located deep in farm country. It stinks for miles. The city tried to stop him legally, but they never incorporated the land in the first place. They tried to stop it at the state level. He followed the process to the letter. Well, it's farmland. And they thought that maybe he wouldn't follow through? He did. He had 400 hogs delivered to what at this point was one of the busiest roads in town. The locals nearly burned down City Hall. In less than a week, the city backtracked a nearly 20-year feud and let him sell his farm for the fair commercial rate as he'd originally bargained for. Yeah, I think the city is the collective jerk in this situation. Normally you hear stories about City Hall being a bunch of complacent and incompetent idiots and big businesses applying this sort of amoral awfulness to screw over the little guy. It's strange to think that there is some sort of mastermind bureaucrat sitting in a government building calculating ways to drain money out of one of his constituents when he got a little too old to deal with all the red tape. Most bureaucrats that I know, while they might be a little worn down and burned out, did at some point want the best for their area and have a spark of passion for their job when they started. It's a fantastic revenge from the guy, while technically working within the laws imposed on him. Good on ya. Now, what did you have to do to get rid of all those piggies? Am I the jerk for not accommodating my brother's vegan fiancé? Full disclosure, I do eat meat, eggs, and dairy. That being said, I'm lazy, and prepping and cooking meat takes more work than I'm willing to do a lot of the time. So I've built up a pretty okay repertoire of vegan and vegetarian meals. That's why I volunteered to cook last night for a small family dinner, even though I would normally never. I love my mum to bits, but if the first step isn't browning a pound of ground beef, she's a little bit lost on what to make. This is all a thing because my brother has recently gotten engaged to a vegan woman. None of us have really spent a lot of time with her due to pandemics and generally having our own lives. The time I have spent with her has been perfectly nice. I thought this would also be perfectly nice. So I did my best. I put together a Dijon vinaigrette salad, pasta tossed with roasted asparagus and cherry tomatoes, and because this is America where carb on carb doesn't have to just be a dream, some bread I fricking vetted to make sure it didn't have milk or eggs in it. She could eat every single thing I served. At least, I thought so. We sat down, plates were dished, and she had questions. Whatever, fair enough. I can imagine that she's been in situations where things seemed safe to eat, but surprise, surprise, there's honey in the salad dressing or something like that. Reassurances were made, I'd done my homework, but she has other complaints. You roasted the veggies in olive oil? There's olive oil in the salad dressing? The pasta isn't whole wheat? This is white bread? Yes. Vegan all of it, but not stripped down to as few calories as possible. And now she won't eat, just sat there and tore up one of the rolls into tiny pieces until the table was cleared. My brother texted me later that night about how messed up it was that she had to go hungry, and this is where I might be the jerk. I replied something to the effect of saying that I thought I had to cook to accommodate veganism, not an eating disorder. He told me to go F myself, which again, fair. Now I imagine a Cold War is brewing and my mum is inevitably going to get sucked in. I also could have tried to make something healthier, though I don't think what I served was that bad. Am I the jerk? No, not really the jerk whatsoever. You went out of your way to accommodate this woman who did not seem to specify her other dietary requirements ahead of time. And if she had, honestly it might have just been easier for her to bring some Tupperware or something if they're that specific about what they eat. You can't have gotten that far into your adult life without realizing that you're several orders of magnitude more picky about what you eat than the majority of the population on planet Earth. What on earth is wrong with eating things that have been roasted in olive oil? With enough forewarning, I can maybe see someone specifically not eating white bread and white pasta and only taking in whole grain. But my lord, if you need almost every almond to be roasted a certain way before you'll touch your food, let people fricking know about how picky you are. I am not hallucinating my treatment. Some years ago, I had a short outpatient procedure which caused me to have a serious infection. I was rushed back to hospital by ambulance and spent a total of 10 days there with something verging on sepsis. I spent the first 24 hours in a clinical decision unit, not the nicest of places, but I was running a serious temperature and didn't notice too much. Rules and targets meant that within 24 hours I had to be discharged or moved to a ward. After 23.5 hours, I was on a ward. It was late evening, I was mixed up with a cannula and a drip, antibiotics which in the end didn't work, so I settled down to sleep. I was reasonably comfortable and, although ill, I was feeling a bit more normal. I was woken up at about 3 a.m. by the patient in the next bed having an incident, which I'll gloss over for reasons of delicacy. I looked around to find a large, fresh blood stain on my sheets. In my rather restless sleep, I'd ripped out my cannula. I pressed the call button. A very nice young man arrived. The nursing station was in sight of my bed, and there was a group of 4 or 5 people there, including the guy who came over, all dressed in black trousers and high-necked black tunics, in addition to 2 nurses who I recognized from earlier. He very efficiently and painlessly reinserted the cannula and cleaned me up. I went back to sleep. He didn't change the sheet but covered it up to save a major disturbance at the time of night. Next morning, after breakfast, 2 nurses came around to change sheets for everyone. Mine were a mess, so I explained what happened. They looked very wary and said there were no male nurses on the ward. I explained that the guy was in a black jacket. They looked at me strangely and said there were no workers in black uniforms. I insisted that I'd been treated by the person I'd described, but they weren't having any of it. Eventually, in sweet, calming voices, they started to agree with everything I said. Obviously, they were humoring me. They went on with their work. A bit later, I saw them discussing something with a charge nurse, with the occasional glance in my direction. I was now getting worried and beginning to doubt myself. Then one of them came back over, beaming uncomfortably. I thought, this is it. She then, rather hesitantly, explained that a party of student doctors had been touring night shifts the previous night. Unknown to her or her colleague, they had a new design of uniform in black. I was sane after all, and he did work there. Yeah, so I was beginning to think that this story would run a lot longer and devolve into an extended discussion of whether to commit the author to an institution. Although it sounds like our author had a lot of medical stuff going on that was pretty serious, that they hinted it only got worse, so maybe they wouldn't have just sent them to an asylum when any crazy lucid dreams and hallucinations could have been explained by fever and meds. So thank goodness that nothing of the sort took place there. My second guess after him going a bit loopy was that I thought it was going to be a ghost of an old nurse who'd passed away in the ward at a tragically young age, and that they'd see his photo hanging up in reception as he left. I'm very relieved that this was not the case, as we don't need more unexplained spectres keeping us up at night on the channel. No harm, no foul. Maybe the doctor student should have reported it or written it on the chart or something. On to the last story. Am I the jerk for bringing my baby to a child-free wedding? My cousin lives a 6-hour drive from me and the rest of our family. A few months ago, we all drove over there for his wedding. Due to limited space, no children were invited to the wedding except the bride's young nieces and nephews. My baby was 10 months old at the time, and I wasn't comfortable leaving him alone in an unfamiliar place with a stranger, which was a babysitter that my cousins hired for their own kids. So I decided to bring him to the wedding. I wrote on the RSVP that I was bringing him, but he would be sitting on my lap and I'd bring my own food for him. My cousin didn't say anything, so I assumed that he was okay with it. My baby cried at the ceremony, but I quickly took him out of the room, and at the reception I had him with me the whole time in a body carrier. He didn't make much of a fuss, and I thought everything was okay. After the wedding, my aunt, the groom's mother, confronted me and told me I was rude for bringing my baby without permission. I explained that I wrote on the RSVP what I was planning to do, but my cousin didn't object. She said that my cousin and his bride had a problem with it, but the bride didn't want to start any drama because she doesn't know me that well. My other cousin's baby was 7 months old at the time, and my aunt said that he had no problem leaving his baby with the certified babysitter, and I should have done the same. And some of my cousins were upset because they thought that the groom gave me special treatment by letting me bring my baby and making them leave their kids with a babysitter. I didn't mean to start any drama. Am I the jerk? On the one hand, it's hard for me to think that this is that big of a deal just because I've sat in so many church services that have been interrupted by a crying baby. I can't see myself being angry or upset if a wailing infant was carried out of the room during my wedding service, but maybe that's just me. The author did kinda do the exact opposite of what the bride and groom specifically asked though, and I think that was inconsiderate, to just write your own +1 onto the RSVP as well. They didn't comment because they didn't want the drama, it wasn't a matter of them being fine with it. Depending on how close you are with these people, it feels like just writing in that you can't come because you have to look after your baby might have been the best option. They'd probably understand. If we have to name a jerk, it's probably you on balance. I hope everyone's fine eventually, and the other memories from their special day become more prevalent as time goes on. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.